Hello, I'm Ritchie Knox, and you are tuned into Virtuous Teacher. In this episode, we'll be talking about robots. Believe it or not, I think that there is a way to maneuver every challenge like a robot. And I'm the first ever robot, by the way, robot teacher to be exact. Now, before we jump into this fun conversation, first off, I would like to direct your attention to the descriptions area where you can find ways to support and connect with me and my initiatives. Of course, you got to check out that new Virtuous Teacher t-shirt located at bhshirts.com or just by emailing me at merch@virtuousteacher.com. All right, let's have some fun with this one. When it comes to class disruptions, how would a robot handle them? That's the question I want to guide this entire episode. Think about a robot on its first day as a teacher. Let's say we're going 50, 60, 80 years into the future. And by this point, AI has become so advanced that, they feel that they can replace teachers. What about it? What if that's even possible? What if that possibly happened? How would a robot handle class disruptions? That's what I want you to start to think about. I got a hypothesis or perhaps an opinion on that matter. I believe that a robot would not show any emotion. Instead, the robot would be very concise and very fair because it doesn't have that emotion to lean on. Think about it. Why would you get upset with a student? Why would you show favoritism? It's emotionally based. All right. There's an emotional connection to what that child is doing and yourself. But when it comes to a robot, they don't have those things. They don't have a spirit necessarily, or they're not able to tap into emotion. So they're going to handle every situation in a very black and white manner. There won't be any fluctuation in how they're handling things with one student versus how they handle things with a second student. It'll be very, very streamlined across the board. And that is what I want to tap into today. And this is why I coined myself the first ever robot teacher. Here's why I am the first ever robot teacher, because in my classroom environment, my students know exactly what I'm going to do every single time. My actions are streamlined. They are ultra consistent. Students can probably teach my class as me now because they've seen it so many different times the exact same way. They probably know what words I'm going to say, what things I'm going to do, the words I'm going to use and how I'm going to use them, just because I keep it the same. It's almost like when you're playing something that's robot based and you press the same button and the robot says the exact same thing 500 times, no matter how many times or how many different ways you press the button. That's kind of how I teach. And I know the criticism. Oh, you're very robotic. You don't have any fluctuation. And I get all the criticisms and I am happy to accept them because I am the first ever robot teacher. I am a teacher that does not do things from a emotional base. That's why I'm virtuous, because I don't allow whether or not I like a student or not to dictate my actions towards them. In fact, when my students turn in their work, I always tell them to put their names on the back. Why? Because I don't want any emotions to impact or affect how I grade their papers. Simple. Now, on a quiz, I will have them put their name on the front because they're either answering A, B, or C, and their answers are either correct or incorrect. So I don't have to depend on emotion or not depend on it because it's a very streamlined black or white situation. Did you get the question right or did you get it wrong? But anything that is based on my interpretation, their name always must go on the back. All right. So yes, that is how I operate. And to answer my own question, how would a robot handle a class disruption? They would address the matter in a very stern yet monotone way. That's it. And I got this idea for this episode because I had a student today walk out of class early and it did frustrate me. And I felt my human my human side boiling. I said, you know what? I really want to say, to the student, I want to say this. I don't know what I wanted to say. I can say this. I was frustrated enough to say something like, you know what? You can go ahead and walk out because your grades suck anyway. That's what I wanted to say. And it was at that moment I said to myself, wow, I'm so glad I didn't say that because that's a emotional response. And I thought to myself, what would a robot do if a student walked out of class before they were allowed to, without permission? The robot wouldn't say much of anything. It might give that student a warning. Excuse me, sir, you must stay in class before the bell rings, something like that. And if the student walks out anyway, it will just write an infraction. It'll probably start to like make a little noise and churn out a receipt that says infraction for this student. And that'll be it. It would send a message to the proper individuals, administration, and the robot would go on about his or her day or its day. So I thought to myself, you know what? That is what I need to talk about in this episode. Correcting behaviors from a space of neutrality and not being emotionally invested when students do things, because there's a lot of reasons why I say that. Number one, in T-minus 5 days, I'm not going to even remember my emotions that were attached to what happened today. And I always say that don't allow something that takes place in a minute or two to destroy your entire career. I've had teachers, almost come to blows with students. And I'm thinking to myself, listen, don't allow 5 minutes to ruin the next 25 years of your life, because now you have to change careers and now you have to write down that you got 5 minutes can ruin your entire life. Don't let that happen. But a robot certainly would not let that happen. Why? Because there's no emotion. So I don't know if you're starting to recognize the tone and theme of what I do. I'm trying to get teachers to check their emotions, because once we check our emotions and operate from a space of discipline, that is how we really tap into the whole virtuous concept, right? It's emotion that gets us in trouble. When we have problems or when students are misbehaving, you get upset because it's normal for someone to feel like they're being unheard or being disrespected. But once you remove all that emotionally based stuff, that's about when you can tap into a different level of yourself, because now you're looking at things very simply. You simplify things when you remove emotion. It's kind of like being in a relationship. Is this person treating me well, or are they treating me badly? If they're treating me badly, I need to move on. If they're treating me well, I need to stay. It's really simple. But emotion gets involved, and it becomes a situation of they're treating me bad, but I love him. I love her. See, that's emotion. But when you remove the emotion, it's very simple, right? Are they treating me well? Are they treating me bad? The answer is very clear cut. And that is how I am trying to operate as a teacher, removing the emotion. Now, if human teachers are ever replaced, and we don't ever want this to happen, but if you look at AI and the growth of AI and how things are starting to come about, if teachers are ever replaced, it will be because of human behaviors and emotional fluctuations. That's the only reason, right? It's because, human beings are becoming too much of an issue. We can remove this human being that comes with all this baggage and replace that person with AI. Think about it. Think about it for just a second before you grab your pitchforks. Look at how we use Google, right? We use Google, we type in information, and all of a sudden we have our answer. And with the advent of AI, you can ask AI anything. Have you ever used ChatGPT? It's amazing. It gives you everything you need, and I'm talking about in seconds. And I could make the argument very easily that ChatGPT is smarter than just about anybody I know. I mean, yes, this teacher specializes in science. This teacher specializes in art. This teacher specializes in math. But ChatGPT specializes in everything. So think about what that would be in a classroom setting. You have a AI teacher that any student can ask any question, and the AI or ChatGPT or robot can generate a respectable and error-free response in seconds. Don't you think that's a little scary when you think about it? It's a little terrifying when you really stop and think about it. We can easily, and I do mean easily, be replaced. The only thing that keeps us in the game, I would argue, is our emotional. That's really contradictory, right? But it's our emotion, our ability to react to certain things and certain behaviors. But if we are ever replaced, I believe it will be because of these reasons. Inconsistencies. How often is it that you arrive late to work? That is the inconsistency. If your boss or your contract states that you should be at work at 7:30, but you're arriving at 8 o'clock, or you're arriving at 8:25 or 7:50, I would argue that that's an emotional response, okay? Because maybe you woke up, wasn't really feeling like coming to work on time, or maybe you overslept because you were feeling sleepy. Again, a feeling or feelings, emotion. Everything is tied to the emotion. The very thing that could have us replaced by robots is the very thing that saves us. And, how long does that hold up? What about your responses to students or, the way you behave? Sometimes you walk past your coworkers, you don't want to talk to them because they said something, they did something to you. Sometimes students do certain things. They come in late for the 400th time and all of a sudden now you're yelling. I mean, these are inconsistencies in human behavior. It's the very thing that makes us human, but it's the very thing that sometimes gets in the way of doing a superb job. Inconsistencies. Next, it's behavioral fluctuations. Think about it. Sometimes you feel perky, sometimes you feel bad, sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're down. And let some people tell it's probably because you didn't get coffee that morning, or didn't get your morning cappuccino, or maybe the Starbucks line was too long and you kind of had to skip it. I'm not sure, but we can all agree that behavior in humans fluctuates. It's not always the same. How you feel right now may not be how you feel tomorrow. It's like that. For example, yesterday I came home from work and I was like, you know what? I'm not doing an episode of Virtuous Teacher. I'm literally tired. I have to do work with my son, my daughter. We have to sit down and do homework. And I just don't feel like doing it. So it's just a feeling based thing, right? That I'm talking about. And I would argue that that's a behavioral fluctuation. Next, discipline. All right. Discipline. How do you discipline your students? How are you yourself holding yourself accountable? Are you a disciplined teacher? All right. Do you come to work on time? Do you follow the procedures? When the parents reach out to you, do you respond within 48 hours? Are you disciplined? Does it matter that you had a bad day with regards to how you respond to a student? Or do you, from a discipline base, respond to every student the same way, regardless of how you feel? It's pretty interesting. Sometimes I'll come to work after having a long weekend. I was upset. Something irked my spirit. I was upset about something, now I'll have to come in and somehow put on a happy face. Have you ever had that happen as a teacher? You've had a long weekend, or you had a bad night the night prior before having to come to work, and you walk into that building and you're just like, you have two options. Either you can wear your disappointment on your face and kind of spread your negative vibes, or you can put on a fake face and try to pretend that you're happy. Which teacher are you? I'll be honest with you. I'm the latter. I am someone, no matter how upset I am, how bad my day was, what mood I'm in, I at least try to operate from a space of discipline. And every single student, every single day, every single class is going to get the exact same version of me because I'm the first ever robot teacher. I'm going to say that a couple more times because I try to be as robotic as possible. And I know it sounds bad, but just because it sounds bad doesn't mean that it is. When I say robotic, I mean I'm disciplined. No matter what the situation is, I'm always going to address situations the exact same. Students know not to try certain things with me because they know already what my response is going to be. They already know. It's like those traffic cameras that track your speed or track whether or not you blew past a red light. You don't have to wonder whether or not the camera is on today, or if the camera is happy or sad today, or will the camera give me a chance if I run it this time? No, every single time, 100% out of 100% of the time, if you run past this light, you're going to get flagged every single time. And that's how I like to be. My students know if I do this, if I do that, it doesn't matter whether or not Mr. Knox is teaching, he's not teaching, if he's busy, if he's not busy, if he's up, if he's down, he's going to do the exact same thing. That is either call my parents or give me a warning before the next time he does call my parents, or he's going to remove me from my space and put me in a different area so I can focus. I use the exact same techniques every time. And I think that is one of my strong suits. All right. Now, this is one I don't like. If we're ever replaced by robots, it will be because robots are cheaper. All right, Chat GPT. I think you can use Chat GPT for every bit of probably like $9.99 a month. That's completely, what is that? What is that? That's like super cheap, right? $108 a year. I don't know. Somebody, what is that? $120 a month? Like, goodness gracious. That's very cheap compared to an annual salary for a teacher, right? So if we're ever replaced, it could be because it's more feasible to put a robot in the classroom and have the robot teach. Also, a robot can be omnipresent. So let's say every student comes into the classroom, they kind of sit down in their cubicles, they put their headphones on, and then they get their lesson. And they can ask that individual AI or robot questions. And guess what? That robot would give an answer, an unemotional answer, and very accurate and error-free answer. And it can do that for every student in the class, up to thousands and thousands and thousands of kids. The average class has about 30 or so students in it. We're talking about maybe middle school, 30 or so students in it. And one teacher can be overwhelmed. But guess what? AI can be overwhelmed. Of course, the only thing that saves us, I think, is possibly because we have the capacity to react emotionally. And think about it. I believe it was the COVID era when students were going to school. A lot of them just kind of tapped out and didn't come to class. I know you had the same experience. And it's because there was no emotional connection. So they just kind of like, So I do think the catastrophic result of having AI teachers would be that there's no engagement. There's no human interaction or connection. So over years, you'll see students become less and less smart because they're not asking questions or being engaged in a very fulfilling and human way. And then I think as a result, students will just clock out. They'll have their camera up or TV or computer up and they'll be texting or something like that. So that means that the level of understanding and knowledge would drop. I think dropping out will probably increase because I think during those few COVID years, attendance was atrocious, right? Just students just like, look, I'm not going to have to look at a physical human being. I'm not coming in. I'm not worried about it. I'll just take the absence. Who cares? So I think that's the drawback. Now, these behaviors and techniques will keep these robots at bay, is how I wrote it down. So let's talk about how we can become more robotic, hence or thus removing the need for robots. If we become more robotic in our concepts and the way that we maneuver, and I don't mean robot in a bad way. And, if there's somebody who's ready to downvote the video, they're ready to go into the comment section and say, I don't want to be a robot, but they're the same person who's going to use a form of a robot or technology in the next 5 minutes, whether it be your refrigerator, your laptop, your cell phone. These are all AI, robotic, mechanic, technological based products. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, we all depend on robots. If all electric devices, I like that word, if all devices of all sorts were to completely vanish, I mean, we'll be really stuck in the Stone Age, the Dark Ages. So let's not get too carried away by saying, he's trying to turn us into robot. No, not really, not that. But nevertheless, in the fun and spirit of this episode, how could we keep these robots at bay? Let's talk about it. All right, number one, observe and report properly. One of the greatest techniques that you can learn is to observe and report. All right. And when you do so, don't get emotionally attached when documenting behaviors or happenings. For example, let's say you're teaching and a student walks in 20 minutes late every single day. Let's say this is day 18 that this student is walking in late. And let's say that this student is walking in late 20 minutes late, which is egregious. Are you going to observe that student walking in and say, you know what, you're always late, and go off on the student? Or are you going to do what I typically do, which is, class, please excuse me, go to my computer, document the student is tardy, and get back to teaching? All right, in that situation or scenario, I have removed the emotional response and just I observed the student coming in late and reported. That's it. I reported and documented that they were late. I observed it and I documented it. When you learn how to maneuver in that way, it does come across as robotic because it's like, hey, he's not going to say anything because I'm like, no, I'm not. You know what time the class starts. You're late. It's documented. Moving along. That is a technique that once you learn, you become more effective because, it just keeps you from being too stressed and keeps the class moving. The same thing can be said about bad behavior. Let's say you have a student that's just going off. They're just off the rails. They came into class running. They hit somebody on their way to their seat. They're falling out their chair. We've had those moments before. Now, how are you going to handle that situation? Are you going to get upset and scream at the student and say, you always do this every day. You come in, you always doing the wrong thing. And you got to go. Get up out of my room. Leave the classroom. First off, you just put your job in danger. Don't let 5 minutes of a teaching day ruin the rest of your life. You kick a kid out of your class, they're unsupervised. Next thing you know, they walk out to school. Next thing you know, you're fired, you're on the administrative leave. That's a terrible way to go out. But when you're operating from a space of, I should say, observing and reporting, you know what you're doing? You're observing the behaviors, okay? And you're going to report it and document it. Okay, student came into class running. Student hit so-and-so on the way to his seat. Student fell out of his chair. Student use perfect. You're observing the behavior and you're reporting. That's it. And then let's say the student ups the ante and says, "Oh, I see you writing. I see you writing. You ugly. I can't stand you ugly." And what you gonna do? I ain't ugly. You ugly. What you gonna do that? You gonna do that? You gonna let 5 minutes dictate your whole teaching career where you lose your job and now all those years doing homework assignments in college go down the drain? Of course not. If you're operating like Mr. Knox, guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna grab that paper. You're gonna say, "Student called me ugly." And you may verbally say it out loud so that they know that everything they're saying is being documented. But if you're really, really good, and I'm not even this good, but if you're really good, you're not even responding. That is the level I'm still working on. Now, I've shown glimpses of being there, but I'm a human, so I'll say it out loud just to be a little, a little whatever the word is, razzle dazzling. But I'll just document it, and keep it moving. But when you become elite, you don't even say it out loud. You just write it. Student called me ugly. Student said I have 4 eyes. Student said my hair is sticking up. Student says I look better with my beard cut off. I'm not even saying it out loud. I'm just writing it down. I'm observing the behaviors and I'm reporting. That is when you're operating like a robot. And actually, so before you say, "Oh, being robotic is bad," which do you prefer as a principal, as an administrator, for a teacher to go back and forth with a student back and forth, or for them to observe their behaviors without any emotion, report what's happening, and communicate it to the proper individuals? I know what I picked. All right, next. Stay elevated. Don't allow students to drag you into back and forth dialogue. We kind of already talked about that, but that is something that would keep robots at bay when I would say the world or even principals or any administrator can depend on their teachers to leave the emotions at home and stay high, stay elevated, stay high. What they call it these days? What is it? High energy, right? You don't want to, high frequencies. I think that's what they call it. They want to operate from a space of high frequency, meaning that they're not allowing negativity to bring them down. No matter what's going on, what's happening, they're elevated. They're operating from a high space or a high frequency. They don't allow students to bring them back and forth in dialogue. No matter what the student does, I'm very neutral. I can handle anything or any joke or anything said about me. And I'm going to observe the behavior and report it. I don't care what you call me. I don't care if you call my mother something and she passed away from breast cancer. Nothing you say will affect me because I'm operating from a space of high frequency. I'm elevated. There's no reason why a teacher with years and years of education under his or her belt should be dethroned by a freaking 11-year-old, okay, whose only achievement is in Minecraft. Like, how does that happen where a kid whose only achievement is 100 followers on Instagram, how did you allow her to take you of all your medals and prestige and bring you down to her level? You haven't stayed, you're not staying elevated. So that's what I mean by staying elevated. A robot wouldn't allow that to happen. Don't get me started. All right, say less is the next way we can keep robots at bay. A student says something to you and you want to respond. And man, if you could just say less and do more documentation, more reporting, you would absolutely save yourself a lot of drama, believe it or not. So I would say less as often as possible. I get it. You have to teach. You have to talk to colleagues. You have to do this. You have to do that. But, I'm a strong believer that the less that you say, the better. The more you're able to restrain your tongue, the more you're able to stay on task, stay focused, the better. And I'll give you the perfect example. You're giving out a lesson and you're teaching your lesson. And guess what? You put something on the screen. Somebody, "Hey, that looks like Blue's Clue," or "That looks like this person," or "That looks like that person." You're like, yo, did you have to say that? I mean, sure, everyone can see that this person looks like Mr. Potato Head, but did you have to say it? No, you didn't have to say it. So you know what you would tell that student? Say less. Yes, you have the right to talk. Yes, there is no law against saying that this person on the screen looks like Mr. Potato Head. But did you have to say it? Did you have to? All right, don't contribute to drama or negative situations. A robot would not do that. A robot wouldn't be concerned with the drama that's going on in the hallways or the drama that's going on here or there. A robot would do his or her job or its job and then go into the closet and recharge. All right, that is the significance or the importance or the most valuable thing about a robot-based teacher. They're not going to get caught up in emotional drama or issues. They're going to do their job and keep it pushing. And that's what I'm trying to have you tap into. The most important one, and I think this one is underrated, go home. All right. Don't stick around and, get yourself caught up with this, that, or the next. Go home. After the workday, don't go out and go get drinks. Don't go and hit Nordstrom Rack. don't, go home and rest, because that's what a robot would do. That way they're recharged and ready to go the next day. Think about it. An AI robot would teach for however long it could teach without going, to sleep. Then once the class was over or the day was over, the robot would go into the closet and recharge for the next day. Kind of like a Tesla or a car. You know what I'm saying? So same thing with human beings. You have to recharge. You have to be ready for the next day, because again, okay, you go to happy hour, you go shopping, you go out, hang out with friends. You don't go home, in other words. You get home late. Next thing you know, you're cranky in the morning because you didn't get proper rest. And it goes back to what I said earlier. Just go home. Just go home and rest. And you see, like right now, I just got off work. I came straight home and I did this. Now you could argue that I could probably be getting some rest right now, but this is so fun for me. It's almost like getting rest. All right. Sometimes I'll get into bed and just kind of stare at the wall or look at my phone because my brain is still acting. So at least I am doing something that can contribute positively to somebody's life. But the point is, I'm not hanging out. I'm not going to do this or do that. I'm going home. All right. So that is my way of being a robot, if you will. That's my way of recharging, if you will. Okay. So there you have it. I hope you really enjoyed some of what I said. I know that this is going to be a polarizing episode. You're going to have two camps of people. Either people who understand what I'm trying to say, which is don't be a robot, literally. I mean, check your emotions at the door so that you can move in a way that's more disciplined. There's a group of people who get that. There's going to be a group of people who just want to be anti, and they're going to, I don't want to be a robot. And I get that person. Just check the comment sections. They're probably down there right now. But if you get what I'm trying to say, then you get what I'm trying to say. And you get what I'm trying to say, if that makes sense. All right. But nevertheless, thank you all for checking out this episode. Throw a like on the video, throw me a review, all that, and let me know what you would like to know, or my perspective on different things moving forward. But it's been good. Thank you.